A series of discussions and a stimulating conversation at Indian Consulate witnessed the presence of Professor Ashutosh Varshney, who discussed about various aspects of Indian democracy.
Today we have a very interesting, I would say, session. Mr. Ashutosh, Professor Ashutosh Varshney, he just come back from India. You know, we've had a momentous election, watershed election perhaps, and the country is full of expectations, in a sense, euphoria, and everybody is really interested in knowing as to how we are going to move forward. So, very appropriately, I think we had some vision of what's coming, and this was decided much before the election dates were announced. So, I'm very happy that he will be speaking on India's improbable norms. I don't know why improbable, but maybe it's got something to do with his book, or maybe thinking. Resilience and pitfalls.
Way to set up this talk is to call India's democracy Janus-based, ambivalent. It is clear to political scientists like me, or the whole profession of political science, that India is a great electoral success. Now, in political science, we call this competitive mobilization. Competitive mobilization is typically accompanied by some violence. That's generally the case. There was no violence those 3 days in Varanasi. On the whole, violence in this election was quite minimal. There is one blemish in Indian electoral history, that is electoral performance, or the electoral performance being in democracy, and that is campaign finance.
I thought this was wonderful because it provided few things. It gave me the background because most of the people had at least last couple of months had started expecting BJP will win big way. Modi is on the way to become Prime Minister, but were unable to explain and understand how the things move so fast. I mean, it is amazing that after Congress Party's initial rule is after very long, that it's the first time ever a single party, which is not Congress, has become on its own without need for a coalition. On their own, they were an absolute majority. And that switch was amazing. And that again gave me another context that a single party's hegemony, what happened in the first 20 years or so, when Congress Party was doing it, now BJP is coming that, and how these parties have to perform in a certain way, and how it might go positive or it might go negative. We don't know. But this is a very successful experiment and it's exciting.
There were a lot of mudslinging on the basis of communal position of various parties. So, in your opinion, how do you think this particular issue has been a key factor in determining the outcome?
No, what I would say is absolutely it is the way I believe, and is that it is majority's obligation to protect minorities, no matter if it's India or USA or any other country. Because if majority does not protect minority, then the nation doesn't stay nation. If you want a nationhood, then the people living in nation must feel identified with the nation, must feel proud of the nation. And that can only happen if the majority says, I'll make sure that a minority is protected.
No, I'm interrupting you because what BJP or maybe people argued was that policy of appeasement has gone too far, and so majority started feeling that their rights are being compromised to the extent where they need a change.
That happens, but again, you need understanding. I mean, look in the USA. The white people feel the appeasement of non-whites has gone too far. But I think you and I, or most of us, feel is not right. Similarly, in India, if we treat Hindus as majority, if we divide that way, I don't want to talk like that, but let us say that it is the obligation of the majority, whether it's Hindu or any other section, to make sure that minorities' rights are protected. Similarly, I also think it behooves the society that anybody who is vulnerable or feels insecure, the society has to protect them and make them feel part of society.
Lastly, your hopes from Modi Sarkar.
No, I'm very happy. So far, it's an experiment. Modi has been very successful in kind of really mobilizing the people. I mean, that's a big thing. To bring, it's first time ever that non-Congress party has won absolute majority. So if that continues and he believes in accommodation, like it was pointed out that in his speeches, the one at least Professor Varshney saw, that he never said anything against minorities. That's a very encouraging sign, because if that happens, and if the minorities start seeing the result and the behavior of the government that way, that'll be very positive.
Professor Ashutosh Varshney have come all the way from Brown University and enlightened us about India's democracy. But jumping into the current scene, the way results are speaking, what do you read? What has led the electorate to decide for the slogan of Modi Sarkar?
Yeah, there's undoubtedly some considerable anti-incumbency that has led to this result, but it's not anti-incumbency alone. Mr. Modi ran a very effective campaign, and some of the research that has been done already shows that the Modi effect over and above the anti-incumbency was very substantial. So in other words, his own campaign also contributed a lot to the victory, not simply an anger against the Congress party.
And very quickly, since we heard many academicians, especially from London, signed, and there were many letters written that Modi should be kept out of power. Economic Times also wrote a big thing.
See, ultimately, we have to respect the verdict, right? I think those who wrote that had a right to express themselves and their apprehensions of Mr. Modi. Even strong opposition, they had a right to say or what they said. But in the end, what determines an election victory is popular mandate. And this is the most remarkable popular mandate in long years. And certainly, this is the first time a non-Congress party has crossed the threshold of 25% vote, which is a very, nearly every third Indian voted for the BJP, and 40% of India voted for NDA. And at the very least, this mandate is to be respected, even if we disagree with it.
And lastly, quick, since you were at Varanasi last 3 days of the polling, and today as we speak, Arvind Kejriwal, Aam Aadmi Party leader, is behind bars for certain reasons. But in general, as per your observation, reading, how is the presence of Aam Aadmi Party for Indian democracy positive?
Aam Aadmi Party is a positive force in Indian democracy. It did quite badly this time, but it's not going to go away. It already has 4 seats and 2.3 or 2.4% of India's vote. I expect it to grow, and I expect it to play a fairly positive role in Indian democracy. It's not going to come to power in Delhi, but you shouldn't be surprised if it comes to power in a few states.
मैं आपको बधाई देना चाहता हूं जिस तरह से वैचारिक चिंतन को जागृत करने की श्रृंखला वाली ये लेक्चर सीरीज चल रही है, और आज विशेष करके भारत के प्रजातंत्र के संबंध में चर्चा हुई. जो परिणाम आए हैं वो काफ़ी लोगों को चौंकाने वाले से रहे हैं. आपको कैसा लगा?
मैंने तो ये कहा है और दोबारा कहूँगा कि भारत का जो लोकतंत्र है उसकी ये जय है, उसका ये विजय है, और बहुत जाहिर है कि पूरी भारतीय जनता इस विजयोत्सव में शामिल है. पार्टी, धर्म, पंथ या जाति को छोड़ के लोग एक राष्ट्रीय भावना से इसमें शामिल हो रहे. बहुत महत्वपूर्ण बात है. मेरे ख्याल से एक भारत जो है लोकतंत्र अच्छी तरह से तरक्की कर ही रहा है, बट एक नया उसको जो है उत्साह इस चुनाव के बाद मिलेगा, इस निर्वाचन के बाद मिलेगा, ये मुझे आशा है. तो एक नया शायद आशा का और नई उम्मीदों का जो है युग शायद प्रारंभ हो जाए।
तो ये जो नया युग प्रारंभ हुआ इसके बारे में संक्षेप में पहले से अब की सरकार के दृष्टिकोण में जो संभावित परिवर्तन हो सकता है उसका विदेश नीति पर कोई असर होगा, ऐसा आपको लगता है क्या?
भारत की जो विदेश नीति है उसमें हम कहते हैं हमेशा कि एक सातत्य है, कि वो चेंज नहीं होता, बदलाव नहीं होता। लेकिन इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि रोज़मर्रा के जीवन में बदलाव नहीं आते हैं, क्योंकि जो भी नई सरकार आएगी उसका व्यक्तित्व जो है वो उस नीति में परावर्तित होगा। लेकिन जो मूल उसका ढांचा है वो बदलने की संभावना बहुत कम रहती है। लेकिन आज की दुनिया जो है वो बहुत मैं क्या कहूँ कॉम्प्लेक्स है। तो उस कॉम्प्लेक्स दुनिया के लिए कॉम्प्लेक्स सॉल्यूशंस जो है वो रोज़मर्रा में उसको ढूंढना पड़ता है, उसकी समस्याओं का हल। तो वो मेरे ख्याल से अलग तरीके से हमेशा होता है।
Indian Consulate, wonderful panel discussion moderated by Professor Maya Chadda. Indian democracy was at the center. So we begin by congratulating Professor Maya for her new book, Why India Matters. And let me begin by using that as a question to welcome you for this conversation. Politically speaking, why India matters?
India matters for a number of things. And by the way, my title of my book is not a question, it's an assertion. India matters, all right? And what I have done in this book is that I've looked at both the internal transformation that has occurred in India after the end of the Cold War and economic transformation, and as well as in terms of development of defense policy and defense doctrines and acquisition of weapons. And basis on all that, our capabilities have expanded. Along with our capabilities, assessment that others make of ourselves and what we can do and what role we can play, that has also changed. And therefore, United States wants India to be part of its rebalancing strategy in Asia. We are involved with a whole lot of, we have a Look East policy, and we are involved in the Indian Ocean region as well as number of countries, and got huge number of trade and other kind of pacts. So we have now already laid down what we call the groundwork to expand our power, to project our power beyond our immediate neighborhood into what we call the extended neighborhood. Now, this is capability. India never thought in that way. This is a new kind of perception of what our security sphere is. So India matters from the point of view of international balance of power, in terms of balance of power in Asia. Second thing India matters is because India has got a unique model of economic and political development. It has managed to do this, a very poor country, which is what we were talking about today. How democracy has managed to dig roots into India and survive for so long, despite all kinds of problems which have led to failures of democracy in Africa and Latin America. But Indian democracy has survived. So it's kind of an exceptional democracy. But not only has it done that, it has done something else which is extraordinary. While remaining within the democratic framework, we have consolidated, politically and geographically consolidated, a highly diverse and highly contentious nation state. From a civilization, we became a nation state. This is an incredible leap, and it has taken place within the democratic model. China is another civilizational state, but China is not a democracy.
You mentioned about defense system or strength of India. From that point of view, when there is a change of party at the helm of India's central government, by and large, during the election campaign and even otherwise, people have said that India projected itself as a very soft nation during Congress regime of recent times. With Dr. Manmohan Singh as Prime Minister, and then this next Prime Minister who's going to take over. Narendra Modi, even during his election speeches and even otherwise, he's perceived to be someone who's going to project India as a stronger and a tough nation. So, how do you see that is likely to work for India's foreign relations with its neighbors?
I think whether we are tough or soft pertains to two of our adversaries most of all, Pakistan and China. We don't really want to wage a war with China. What we want to do is to strengthen our defenses on the border, which has been happening, and make the border impregnable. We've tried very hard to do that. The other thing is then not to provoke China because we're not ready for a war with China. So, what is going to be solved in any case? So, we have enormous trade relations. So, we've got a two-pronged strategy with China, which is what Manmohan Singh initiated and evolved over the period of time. I can't quite see what Mr. Modi can do other than pursue this with maybe he'll calibrate it a little differently. Maybe he admires China greatly in terms of its infrastructure and so on. He'll bring in more investment. Maybe economic relations will, blossom forth. But I don't see what other truly different alternative he can pursue. Let's talk about Pakistan briefly. Now that's where the rub is. Manmohan Singh, because he has been talking to Pakistan, and dropped the precondition about terrorism, saying, okay, we'll talk in any case and see whether we can develop some confidence building measures so that we can take this further. And if we can't talk about Kashmir or Siachen or borders, let's talk about trade. So we have been making progress with that regard. Pakistan has kind of almost agreed to give us the most favored nation status, but then the elections occurred, so everything went into abeyance. Now, if you think about it, and I think it's people, sort of wrap themselves around the flag and say, with Pakistan, we cannot do that. But even with Pakistan, we have had so many wars. Each war, we've done very well. We had an upper hand, okay? Why didn't we go beyond and take Pakistani territory or capture Kashmir and keep it? Because we could not do that. We didn't have the capabilities to do that. Second thing was, Kashmir has been impervious to wars or negotiations. Waging another war will not solve the Kashmir issue because Kashmir issue is both internal and external. There is a temptation in the BJP ranks to make it entirely external. It is not entirely external. It is also internal. Something will need to be have done. And removing Article 370 is not the way to go about it. In fact, that would increase suspicion. It's an immensely complicated problem. Third thing I just want to quickly mention, I was part of the Track 2 Diplomacy India-Pakistan dialogue just 2 months ago. There was a whole delegation of Pakistanis who had come down at a very high level, who really interact with the top level, policymakers among them. They very clearly told us that, look, this whole fight is not between India and Pakistan so much, it's also between their civilian government and their armed forces. The armed forces have now understood and begun to understand that India is not the enemy, it's the internal enemy, the violence that is going on, and they need to take care of that before they can do anything else. And therefore there is a consensus building within Pakistan to really begin to settle things with India, to negotiate with India, and to come to better terms with India.
In his call it debut address at the parliamentary session of BJP candidates, he talked about hope in a big way, and he said कि आशावादी नहीं होंगे तो कुछ नहीं हो सकता. And then he gave some simile of half full, half empty water, saying that I look at it as half water, half air, etc. You must have. So, and there were many other suggestive references to sort of kindle some sense of additional hope. How do you feel that is likely to resonate with people?
Oh, wonderfully. Actually, that reminds me of a thing in which my father used to tell me in Sanskrit. He used to say, Asha nam manushya nam kachit ashcharya shrunkhala Yaya Baddha Pradhavanti Mukta Sindati Panguvat. In other words, person who is not, it's a shrunkala, it is Asha means hope, is like a chain. When you are tied with it, you run. When you're without it, you stand still. You see, and I think Mr. Modi has understood that extremely well. People's hopes are riding on his success. I think he's cognizant of it. I think he's humbled by it. I hope that continues because he would make a terrific leader. He's a great politician. He's a terrific manager. He's very savvy politically. He is a decisive man. He's got persona. He's got a great personality. He speaks beautifully. For once, we have a leader in place who understands the importance of language and rhetoric and political rhetoric. And I don't mean that in any, I mean that in a complimentary way, that he has mastered that art. You need to reflect the aspirations, the hopes of people, and he's able to do that. And he does that in a very simple way. You know, you are an artist, a poet, you know this whole local theater, you know, folk theater, Bhavai and so on, and how they quickly. Mr. Modi's speech is run like that. Okay, he's got that rhythm. He's got that. So I'm all admiration for him, but I'm also apprehensive because his party has done some things in the past that raise questions in my mind. What will they do in the future?
So what I just want to recollect with you is he said there are no enemies in the politics, and he said these are only pratispardi, so competitors. So overall, what subtle message, if we say, he has been consistently giving after.
Where he's civilizing the discourse. Okay, that's very important. The discourse had become very uncivilized. He's civilizing the discourse. It's a wonderful thing to do. Instead of talking about, you know, negative way, he's enveloping that into a political, democratic, you know, contestation, which is a wonderful thing to do.
And I think I haven't heard of any politician being at the receiving end of so many creative, abusive expressions as he has been during this election campaign. So, from that point of view, when you saw him reacting even during the campaign, it was not as bitter as.
But he used sarcasm like a weapon. He used phrases that were very pointed again like a weapon. So he is given back. You know, he had better political skills, better rhetorical skills than all those who abused him. They didn't have the rhetorical skills. But I think he's given back as much as he got, you know, in his own way.
So wonderful. So people got a new government, and also, if I may say now, there was a lot of entertainment. As you said, there was a theatrical way in which he was asking questions to people, and then they were kind of jumping up and down with what is so. And many people would not forget "Ma bete ki sarkar to gayi," or there were so many as you.
Lot of many such phrases. I can't remember them all, but I thought of it as, my God, how well it encapsulates something which people can just repeat, and they just got the idea. You know, they got the idea that he's trying to convey. So these rhetorical skills are par excellence, and Mr. Modi is very gifted in it.
And also at Varanasi, while he was giving his call it victory speech or so, addressing. So one thing he mentioned that, do you think you have given me contract for 5 years to work? तो मुझे कॉन्ट्रैक्ट तो नहीं दिया है ना. And then he was encouraging them to participate and keep the Kashi clean.
Yes, it is that, you know, here in the great speeches are those speeches that take from the Bible, and they have that rhythm of the Bible. If you look at Abraham Lincoln, if you like Obama even, you see, there is this whole preacher's thing which is back and forth between the leader and the yeah, we want change. Yes, we want change. What do you say? Yes, we want. So there is that rhythm, and I think Mr. Modi caught that in his own way, which is what I mean. His rhetorical skills were extraordinary.
So we enjoyed the speeches, and now let us see how much we enjoy and are enriched by Modi Sarkar in place. And Maya ji, thank you very much.